Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Community Storytelling here at KCAT TV 15. I'm Lissa Kreisler. Always want to thank Linda Lester as she makes sure this show gets to you. So we have two guests on today, and we're going to have a little bit of a learning lesson because I think many of us need it and don't even know we need it. But we're going to be talking about the Eating Disorders Resource Center, EDRC, and we have a mother and daughter volunteer team here who both spend quite a bit of time there. So let me introduce you. So we have Maya, who's a junior at Los Gatos High School. Go Wildcats, got to say that right. And your beautiful mom here, Aparna. And your last name is Ramadurai. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
So tell me how you two got involved with the Eating Disorders Resource Center.
So my mom works for an eating disorder clinic, and she knew Janice, so she introduced me to her, and I volunteered with her over the summer, and I decided that I liked it, so I continued.
So let's talk a bit about eating disorders. You're a dietitian, and eating disorders, I don't really think it's ever called a mental illness, but eating disorders are a mental illness, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And I think it's so much more prevalent than anybody realizes. How prevalent?
There are over like 200 million people in the United States that are impacted by eating disorders. And it is definitely a very serious mental health problem right now. And eating disorders don't discriminate at all. They, they can happen in individuals of any age, any gender, ethnicity, race, or economic background.
So we've got the anorexia,
Correct.
which
yes.
is basically starving yourself to death. Bulimia, which would be vomiting.
Right.
And
Binging and vomiting.
Binging and
correct.
vomiting. Well, isn't binging also?
That's another eating disorder,
Yes.
which is binge eating
And
without
then-
compensatory
Yes. And
behaviors.
there's one more, I think.
It's called ARFID. It's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder.
Wow.
Yes.
So a lot on your plate
Yes.
working with these young people. But they're not all young people, right?
No, there's all different age groups.
At high school, not to pinpoint anybody or call anybody out, but do you see a lot of it on campus?
It's a little hard to see someone and tell that they have an eating disorder, but definitely it's talked about. We have events and stuff that promote body positivity, and we have people come in and speak and share their experiences, but it's hard to kind of tell from if your friend, you can't really notice things like that.
Which is the unfortunate thing, because I think oftentimes there is not the cry for help, but they need so much help.
Totally.
Moms and dads, I think, often will walk in and find their daughter perhaps vomiting, but I think young men I think the numbers are also big for them, true?
Yes, totally. It used to be in the past more something that girls would have to face more of, but we're noticing more and more that it impacts men, women, different genders. Like I said, it doesn't discriminate. So we're just not aware of a lot of men or boys who have it because it presents itself in different ways compared to women or girls.
Is there a common denominator in all of the eating disorders? What would that be?
It's just a relationship with food that is not healthy. So any of the eating disorders, just no matter which category you look at, there is something to do with a poor relationship with food. Or it also has to do with not being able to eat certain food groups in the right quantities to make sure that you get a balanced diet. So it presents itself in different ways. But yes, the bottom line is food is definitely something that these individuals don't have a good relationship with.
So tell us some of the things that Eating Disorders Research Center can offer families.
So the Eating Disorder Resource Center, as it's named, is a really good resource center for families as well as friends who have people they know who are suffering from eating disorders. And basically they're like the hub for people to go to if they need providers in the area. For example, if I have a friend who I feel like needs some medical help and support, they would go to the Eating Disorder Resource Center and they would be able to direct them to a medical provider who specializes in eating disorders, or if they're looking for a psychiatrist or a dietitian or a psychotherapist who works in the field, they can point out who would be someone in their area they can approach and get help from.
How difficult is it? I don't think cure is the right word, but how difficult is it to have somebody beat this?
It kind of depends on when you catch it. You know, I have worked with people who've had eating disorders for many years, sometimes 20, 25 years, and then they recognize that it's an issue and then they start working towards it. Those can possibly take a little longer than somebody, for example, who's just had it for a few months or like a year or so into it. It's a lot easier to reverse it and work on treatment modalities when there isn't that many years that's passed by. It also depends on the support system you have. I think some people have a great network of family and friends who can help them through that. We usually talk in my practice, we talk about how it takes a village to provide care for individuals with eating disorders, because it really does. Apart from the multidisciplinary team that they need, they also need the real strong support of family, friends, because eating is such a huge part of everyone's life. It can be a huge social thing. It can be something families deal with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you think about it, we eat like 3 to 4 times a day. And so
Sometimes
it is.
more.
Sometimes more. So it's really one of those things that it encompasses a lot in your life.
Maya, do they ever discuss this at school?
I mean, occasionally there'll be like awareness week or something. Like one day there'll be a speaker or something in the theater, but it's not something that like kids really talk about with each other. So not very many people know about what an eating disorder actually is.
Well, I think because probably kids are embarrassed
Yeah.
that they have it and don't want anybody to know because it's a disorder.
Yeah.
It's a disorder. Now, do you find a lot of pressure from society to be a certain way and look a certain way?
I think people are pretty, at least in like Los Gatos, they're pretty inclusive and nice about things, but like you see people in the media and stuff like that, that kind of has a bad impression. But I think around here it's pretty okay.
Great. What do you do at the center?
So like my mom said, they take calls from people who are looking for help or people who want to recommend like family members. So I helped screen those calls and kind of connect people to the help that they need. And I also helped with, since I'm younger, I could like do marketing and stuff, like help spread the word about the writing contests that they have, which is to get high school students to talk about these issues and write about them and possibly like make a difference. And there's an incentive for that, which I think will draw a lot more people to like know what eating disorders are about.
There were many years I was a judge for that writing contest, and I so enjoyed
Yeah.
reading. I think they were almost all young girls who participated, but their stories, and they were personal stories, were
Yeah.
so fabulous.
Yeah, it makes a difference. Like, yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know, what do you think, is there a secret to conquering this? Because I think now it is out in the forefront a little more than it was 10, 20 years ago. But now you have, entertainers like Lizzo who are
Yes.
fighting body shaming and issues like that. But nobody really talks about the actual eating disorder, although Demi Lovato did
Yes.
quite a bit. Which is it helpful for you to hear from one of these
Celebrity.
entertainers?
Yeah, like Taylor Swift's new documentary, she said that she struggled with an eating disorder, and I personally, like, Taylor Swift is one of my favorite artists, so seeing like a role model of someone you respect and kind of trust is really empowering, because if they go through it too, then you know that you're not like the only one, because they have a wide fan base and there's someone who relates to you.
And she kept that secret for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So long.
Totally.
Anything
Yeah.
that you'd like to add? You're a dietitian.
Yeah.
You work with these people who are trying to conquer.
Yes, I definitely think, like you said, like she was talking about how you don't really know who has an eating disorder. There's a huge stigma
Yes.
about, eating disorders, and how it's a very, like, something that people don't know about. So they feel like they don't want to get into it. And yet at the same time, it's helpful for kids who are suffering from eating disorders to have a friend who's compassionate and who likes them just the way they are, and not be asked to fit into this model look of how you should be to be successful. I think kids nowadays are very drawn to social media, and like she was saying, they're all really familiar with celebrities and what they do. And I think social media can be used for both good and bad. On the one hand, you have a lot of people who promote body positivity, enable kids to feel that, okay, we don't have to look a certain way to be called healthy. And then on the other hand, you also have other things that talk more about being pro, dieting. And so there's lots of different things that you can find on social media. So I would encourage, kids nowadays to really look at the information and see what seems practical and be well informed when they're following things like that to understand what health really means to them.
Anything you would like parents to be on the lookout for that maybe they're not now, but maybe you can point out to them?
I think from a parent standpoint, and being a parent of 2 teens, I know that life can get really busy.
Yes.
Everybody has work and things to do. I think it's really important to make sure that the kids have a pretty good structure around meals. As a dietitian, that's one of my main things that I focus on with families, because part of my work with teens and young adults with eating disorders also involves working with the families and the parents. The family system is super important. It is like the place where kids feel most comfortable in, where they start out with eating habits. I always think about days when kids are like toddlers and they eat until they're full and then they stop eating. They have a really natural, nice sense about what is intuition. But as they grow older, for some reason, all of these other environmental factors come into play, the stigma of weight, and they start talking about, oh, maybe if I ate this, it's not good for me. Maybe I should eat that instead. And then what if I eat this and I look a certain way? So they start associating food with how they would look and how their bodies change. So I would encourage parents to not label foods good and bad. I think there's lots of foods out there, and certain foods we eat in larger quantities than others, and each family has their own cultural background that they bring to the table. So I would not want to label foods as this is a good food for me, I should eat more of this, or that's a bad food, but eating all foods in a good balanced fashion, and including everything. I would make sure that kids have a balanced meal. Include all different food groups, like there's 5 food groups, make sure that all of that is on your plate, and not avoid food groups because they may cause your body to look a certain way.
Could McDonald's be a 6th food group?
Yes, so I would also encourage families to look and see that the kids have like lunches they're bringing to school, or they have snacks available to them. I would some red flags that should be things to look out for would be maybe if kids are suddenly changing their diet habits completely because of a class they took and somebody told them something about a certain food, or if they go to the pediatrician's office and they've dropped from the growth curves, their weights drop suddenly. Or even if there's like odd behaviors they're noticing with their kids, I would definitely make sure that they bring it up in their appointments with the doctor.
So Maya, does mom let you have junk food now and then?
Yeah, she's a huge chocoholic. So
Yes, like
yeah,
that.
it's nice because like everyone's like, oh, is your mom a dietitian? She only lets you have broccoli and stuff, but she's the candy one in the house.
Well, we have
Moving in.
everything. Yeah, we have everything in the house.
As long as I
so.
eat the stuff I'm supposed to,
Okay.
candy's good.
But maybe fast food now and then too?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're vegetarians, so
Oh.
we have fries. That's the extent of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. Oh, well, you
Yeah.
two are wonderful. Thank you for what you do for the EDRC. It's the Eating Disorder Resource Center, edrc.org. They're in Campbell. Look them up online. You can see their great website. And if you need help, please do get it. Maya, good luck at school this year, Los Gatos High School, your
you.
junior year. Junior year counts big on those
Yeah.
college applications. And Aparna, thank you so much for what you do, and I'm so glad you eat chocolate. Yes, you've made me
couldn't live
feel
without
much
it.
better.
Yes.
Yes, all right. And thank you so much. Sometimes we get a little serious here at Community Storytelling, and today was one of those days. I'm Lissa Kreisler. If you have someone or an organization you would love to nominate, please do at KCAT.org. And you're watching us, as always, on KCAT TV 15.